Hi there, it's Sandy, your sister and your friend. Today I want to talk about how my and your oneness with God actually helps us deal with the things that we're going through in this world. And 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 I'm going to use this is just my journey, and I'm going to share it with you because it is not just for me. If there's something that has been a useful revelation or tool or way that I can think about things differently, then it's for somebody else too, and hopefully it will have some relevance to you. So I wanted to say today that there's a Bible verse that says God is all and in all, and that means that God is a part, his creation is part of God. It's not that God is number one and what God created is number two. No, it's that God is number one and everything else is included in number one. There was a time when Moses was interacting with God, and God said to call him I am that I am. And because God is that, you are the I amness of God. I am the I amness of God. This leaf that I found just as I was walking out, this is the I amness of God. There's nothing that God has created that can ever be apart from him. It can't exist. Its very being is in God, because that is the being that created it. So you might ask, well, why is this important? Well, it's really important for us to grab hold of the fact that we share God's character. It's not that God is one thing and then mankind in God is another thing. No, it says that God is love, God is kind and good and compassionate. He is all powerful, all knowing, ever present, eternal. All those things describe you and describe me and describe everything that is created by God. We're still just as God created us, which means that every person in this world who's ever lived and ever will live is innocent, because we're still in heaven just as God created us. So we might ask ourselves, why does this world this life that we're living in, this world seem like a roller coaster ride? Why does it seem like it's up and down? And today I'm afraid, and tomorrow I feel love, and today I feel pain, and tomorrow I might feel pleasure. And it's because we made up collectively an ego. And this ego is in us. It's not real. It's something, again, it's a thought system that we made up. But the ego is based on the idea that we're separated from God, which is a lie. It's not the truth of the matter. We've never been separated from God. Again, we can't be, because we still live in heaven. We're in God, in heaven. But the ego is always trying to trick us, and it never is in the moment that we're in. It never has anything smart to say, because it uses our past to project our future, and it's just, it never stops talking, and it never knows the truth of anything that it's talking about. But I need to just realize that I have a choice in every moment as to which of these, one is my reality, and the other is a made up thought system. Which one am I going to listen to? Which one am I going to agree with in the moment? And the moment that I decide to agree with the reality of who I am, innocent, all powerful, eternal, all the things that I just mentioned, when I decide to agree with that is my true reality, and I agree with that, my ego ceases to exist for me in that moment. Now, I don't say it ceases to exist, because as long as I am a body on the earth, I will have an ego, but it doesn't have to be the voice that I listen to anymore. I can surrender all those egoic thoughts to my reality, which is God. It is my reality in God. Now, I think because as long as we live on this earth, we actually will be in this cycle of remembering and forgetting, remembering who we are and forgetting who we are. And I don't want any of us to judge ourselves as inferior or lacking, or in any way to judge ourselves for getting caught up sometimes in that cycle. Um, but when we remember who we truly are, what that brings us to is a matter of seeing all of creation, all of our brothers and sisters, as who they truly are, in their true reality as well. And what that leads us to is when we see how they're behaving on the earth, and if they're behaving, their behavior is coming out of their egoic thoughts, and we know what those are because we see them in ourselves. So when we see them in someone else, it's now a matter of deciding that we're going to forgive them for their behavior that we're seeing here. We know it's not even real. It comes out of their made up thought system. But we can see beyond that, this experience that we're having with them, to their true reality. We can see beyond these things and see them as they really are. And I think that, again, I'm using Christian examples here, but I think that Jesus demonstrated this for us beautifully, because he did the most. He was a teacher, and he was always teaching his disciples and all those who listened to him what it means to live from this higher reality, from the knowing. He said, I am one with God. He called himself, before Abraham, he said, I am. And they knew, the Jews who were around him knew that that meant he was equating himself as being equal to God. And that was blasphemy for them. And for that, they crucified him. But even on the cross, Jesus didn't stop seeing himself as who he was, not as a victim, and he didn't see the people crucifying him as his victimizers. He saw them as they truly are, as they were in their true reality. We know that because he said, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. They were operating out of their egoic thought system, and they had taken their thoughts about themselves and projected that onto Jesus, and for that reason they were crucifying him. Now, there will be times when I forget, as I say, who I really am, and I will operate from my egoic thoughts and perceptions, but that doesn't change the reality of who I am. I am one with divine essence. I am one with God. That is my true reality. And so even if I forget, that hasn't changed. And all I really need to do is, in one still moment, to remember who I truly am. And that brings me back into the reality. And again, giving up the idea of being one with my ego. Now, what does this do for me in terms of what's going on in the world? It really helps me to have compassion for whatever is happening in the world and whoever I have deemed to be a victim or the victimizer. And I can tell you that if there's anything happening in the world that reflects hate and violence and cruelty and lack and death, those things are not created by God. God is the one who gave life, and gave life in all of its abundance in every way. So anytime that I'm wringing my hands and saying, oh, this world is a terrible place, oh, this is awful, everything's awful, that's a sure sign that I am agreeing with my ego and not with my reality. So I wanted to give an example. Last week I saw a really brief video of a little girl, a young girl in Gaza, who had just been told to get out of a building, and she and her little brother and her cousin were all, talking to someone who was, she was sharing with, that they didn't know where to go. And this little video of this little girl, it troubled me so much I had difficulty sleeping that night. And when I got up the next morning, I realized, wait a minute, I'm not doing a service to her. As when I'm agreeing with my egoic thoughts about what's happening in this world, I'm actually sending that same energy out into the world. My agreeing with the ego is a very low vibrational energy, and that's not going to solve anything. So what I did that morning instead is I saw this little girl in the reality of who she really is, that she would feel my energy that I'm sending to her, and she would realize that God is her provider and her sustainer, and all of a sudden she would become able to operate from this higher reality. And then I took those same thoughts that I had for her and her cousin and her little brother, and I sent it to every soldier and every person who was trying to escape in any war zone across, in any family where that was going on. And I just raised my elevation to forgive them for not knowing who they truly are, and for loving them as I love myself. This really changed things for me, and it's not up to me as to how that's going to materialize in this little girl's life. That's up to God. But my part of it is to hold the joy that I had of seeing my sister and my brothers and sisters wake up. They were waking up in my projection of my forgiveness and love into their experience. They're waking up to see who they are. And I just need to hold that joy that I had in knowing that this oneness was being realized, their oneness with God, and seeing God in the reality of their existence in God. So I think this is how we save each other. This is how we save the world. And there's nothing that we're all powerful. There's nothing that's too hard, and we're not limited anyway. So I just wanted to share that was my newfound way of dealing with war and other devastations that I see perceptually through my egoic eyes. So I love you so much. Thank you for listening. Hit the subscribe button if you haven't. Hit the like button. Leave me a comment. Tell me, what do you do? I'd love to hear your experiences. Thanks so much. God bless you. Bye-bye.